Listen, I wondered if we could meet or talk or something. I just wondered, how your filming did.
It was a lot of things that we didn't end up getting to, a lot of things that I wish I could have had them discuss. There wasn't enough time, and I didn't have a set agenda. I just let them get in front of the camera and say what they wanted to say, so I'm sure that there's a lot that I wish I had asked them, which I didn't. It's a little late now.
Do you have written questions, beforehand?
No, we just did topics. I didn't want it to be any leading questions. I had no set agenda.
Yeah.
Just let them talk in generality. Most of the best stuff came out in the lounge during lunch or with drinks afterward anyway.
When you weren't recording.
Right.
Yeah, it happens to be all the time.
But what's this lawsuit all about?
Robert Groden sued me.
No, not that one.
There's three.
Citizens Against
Public Citizen?
National Archives.
Yeah, Public Citizen, that's Mark Katz, has brought that suit. He's trying to get the use of the pictures. Unfortunately, I didn't know what for until last week, to put in a picture book just showing Kennedy's trip out west from start to finish, and the finish is with him on the slab, which unfortunately sounds, to the court, would sound kind of frivolous if they know about it. I do know that the judge, my impression was that he intends to dismiss it. I went to the hearing last Wednesday, and he seemed to, he asked the government to hand him a motion for summary judgment to prepare one. And from my experience, I would say that that's what he was going to do. And the Public Citizen lawyers were pretty depressed, as they left it. And I don't think it looks too good. It also seemed to me to be a stacked case where the judge brought up the new law that was just passed, Presidential Records Act, Assassination Records Act, and he's using that as the basis to dismiss the case, which, I don't know this for certain, but this is what he was basically saying. So I don't feel too great about it, but the act excludes the autopsy pictures and x-rays, and so the judge is going to find on that basis that Congress has already passed a law saying this, and then let them keep suing or go up to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court, which is what they say they're going to do about it. I think it's just completely mixed up, and it doesn't make any sense. I think at the bottom line is that is a straw case, and the other two suits in court are straw cases. One to exhume the body in Dallas, and one against David Bellin and Robert Blakey by Tom Wilson, if you know who that is.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say something to you. I've known Mark Crouch pretty intensely for a couple years, and 3 years, and occasionally he and I have some pretty rough battles, and we got into one 2 weeks ago during this problem over Groden. But I really respect him, and there is an operation going on in our research group. I'm working right now with a federal judge in Dallas and with a whole network of former FBI agents and who secretly investigated the murder of John Kennedy on their own hook, in other words, on their own time. Some of these agents were very highly placed, and they worked for some of the richest people in the world that lived down there. And I think that I have got to the bottom of this case. I don't know how much you realize, but this research group, to a certain extent, is controlled by the conspirators. There are people in the research group who are placed there to disrupt what we do, to be watchers, to keep track of what we're finding out, and to basically de-objectify that evidence. And so, since I didn't know you and Mark didn't know you, and who's putting up the money for your project, which had to be quite a lot of money, we were concerned because it comes right in the middle of really what are our greatest achievements in the case. And we do know that false information was planted on those men. And as I wrote in my last book, which I don't know how familiar you are with High Treason 2, but that I suspected that certain researchers maybe tampered with those photographs. For that, I got sued by Robert Groden 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago. And but we do know, we can prove absolutely that they were should I say, colorized, retouched for the Globe articles. And I believe beforehand whether or not he had anything to do with everything that happened there, I don't know. We certainly did not. And I work very closely with FBI agents, and the FBI is investigating some of this stuff right now having to do with the pictures. And I have nothing to hide, and I am doing my damnedest to, I finance a lot of people in this case. I don't know if you heard, but I spent $10,000 in Dallas 3 weeks ago in 1 week. I had surveyors in the, in the Plaza checking those trajectories and so on. I had police officers from Baltimore down there that worked closely with me, and so on. And so, I wish that you and I knew each other more. My problem is that I have so much slander out there trying to knock me out that I never know what people have heard when I talk to them, and they might just think, well, I'm the creepiest person in the world, and I can't get any farther with
Well, very simply, I licensed The Men Who Killed Kennedy, as you know, for video cassette. I'm having a hard time getting the kind of distribution I'd like because, for all intents and purposes, thanks to the Journal of the AMA, the Kennedy assassination case is pretty much a done deal for the time being. Nobody wants to talk about it anymore.
Thanks to who? I didn't hear what you said.
The Journal of the AMA.
Oh, yeah, JAMA.
And, therefore all I'm looking to do is prove the basic principles that Nigel Turner left off with in 1988, pure and simple. And I'm kind of trying to stay outside of the...
Well, there are many errors of fact in this 1988 film. I haven't been able to compare it line by line. I haven't had the time with the 1991 version. It seemed to me that some things had been corrected and he dropped some things, but there were a lot of misstatements of fact in that.
Anything that you can immediately...
No, I'm going to have to sit down and write each thing.
Led down the wrong path to a certain degree on certain things, and, dealing with eyewitness, stories, that, recollect things a certain way, and you fell prey to that, I'm sure. Lifton fell prey to it. Grodin, everybody, went on the record saying a certain thing only to find out something else was the case, and, so be it. But, now it's 5 years later from Turner's work, and I'm looking to perhaps go further than that and at least, show it the way it is, good or bad or indifferent, but I'm just doing this on my own, just for my own edification, and then at some point if it becomes important or usable in another context, I'll deal with it then, and as I've discussed with all the other men, I'm not planning to do anything with that interview footage unless they're all aware of what's happening before it happens.
All right, what I'd suggest to you is that I have a professional project with that. I have filmed all those men, but you may have something that I don't have, but if you don't get anywhere with it...
You're talking about the thing in 1991 or whatever?
Yeah, I haven't got that out yet, but there's a Highwood and a New York company involved, 2 companies. If you don't get anywhere with it and you want to throw in with us, and we'll see, if there's anything new there, but I would try to reimburse you some of your expenses and so on if you can, because I'm putting this in a much bigger picture. The medical evidence is just part of it. What you have with the Nigel Turner thing is the medical part of it was fairly good, although there were errors in there, like I said. But then he got off on a tangent at the end of the film. You may disagree with that, but it just really doesn't have anything to do with what really happened.
What, the French hit team?
Yeah.
How do you know it didn't?
Because I'm working with people who were right in. I've talked to people that were connected with the assassination in Dallas. The whole thing came out of Dallas.
The problem is there's so many red herrings when it comes to this. What can you prove and what can't?
Yeah, right.
Talk is cheap.
I don't expect you to believe what I'm telling you. See, but that's what my new book is about, and that I'm going to publish. I'm not, like I said, my sources are entirely FBI people, and what they're pointing the finger at is something that would be awfully hard to find a reason to say, well, this is not credible. See, because they're basically pointing a finger right at their neighbors. So.
Well, I found the biggest problem with the Kennedy is that there's an old saying: what society cannot assimilate, it destroys. And what, in the case of this, what people do not understand they dismiss or criticize, and so I usually find that the thing that gets criticized the most is what intrigues me the most, because there must be something to it if it's bothering people that much, and no one has been able to dismiss the French scenario, even if it wasn't all three of the guys that were mentioned.
Well, you apparently weren't aware that the French government went to a lot of trouble to alibi all of those men. And they did it on the spot. I have the article.
And I've looked into the alibis, and they don't hold water. That's what I've been doing, is looking
into
they were
in prison and on a ship and so on.
There's a new book out. I forget the name of it, but it's basically by the guy who killed Jimmy Hoffa. And it talks about how the fact that they were able to actually pay prison officials at that time. Somebody got paid off. That was just the way organized crime went in those days, where they actually released the guy for 5 days, and he and two other guys went up to Michigan or whatever and did the job and came back. And in the old days, even in the 60s, Christian David was recruited for the SAC right out of prison. They just got him out of there, and he started joining de Gaulle's forces against the OAS. I mean, this bullshit about them being in prison doesn't impress me at all, And the other excuses they had about Sarti losing an eye and all that, he lost an eye when he was 15, and by the time he was picking up guns and shooting and killing people during those years, he was very proficient with one eye. So one thing I've learned, I'm sure you have, is you never believe anything you read in the press, and certainly nothing that comes from the government. When you start from that foundation, then at least you have a chance of learning somewhat of the truth in these matters.
Yeah, well, I do know you're right about their sneaking guys out, to do a job and that kind of thing, and there is a lot of crossover there where, prison officials might be working with.
That would be like you and I accepting all of a sudden the police records on these three tramps, just because after all these years and because of the Stone movie creating some controversy, the police department in Dallas decides they're going to all of a sudden release these harmless files on these three individuals who are nothing more than hobos. I mean, please.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned...
and they didn't give, as far as I know, there are no mugshots with those
right.
rap sheets, and
it's all bullshit.
There's no fingerprints with them.
All right. It's all... So. Everybody, it's cover your ass time.
Yeah, all right. Well, listen, I would, of course, I'm terribly interested to know what they said, because what I've been trying to find out is Lifton has made several semi-public statements that he planted false information on those men that crept into my book, and I'd sure as hell like to know what it was. I have found in Dallas that witnesses were paid in this case. It appears that some people that were planted in Dealey Plaza were planted there by the conspirators. They needed reporters, in other words, people to report to them what exactly happened so that they could get their cover-up straight quickly. In other words, if it looked...
Well, you interviewed these men long before the Stone movie came out, or anything. It became, you should have gotten a more sincere story than even at... Not that they're insincere now, but they would have been at least more fresh and spontaneous about what they said back then than perhaps now, when they've all had a chance to think about it and confer among each other. So why would one think that...
Well, you can compare with what you heard. Compare it with my write-ups in my book and see if there's any substantial difference. Because I'm pretty careful, and I would certainly like to know. I hope you will tell me if they have controverted anything any basic thing that was reported in my book. I'm talking about the second book. But that would be really important to me, because I've been very concerned. It's quite clear that at least Paul O'Connor has been, to a certain extent, had his head turned, that he's been tampered with.
Well, I think that I can honestly tell you one thing that did come out of that weekend is that a number of those people were very disillusioned with the community made up of all you authors, who seem to be saying certain things about them and manipulating certain things they've said to a particular author that then came out in print a slightly different way, and they're just very disillusioned in general about the way this whole thing has been handled, and one against the other, and they're caught in the middle, and it becomes a personality conflict, and everybody has a set agenda. Lifton put himself on record stating a certain position. You came out with another position, and then everybody's knocking heads, and makes one wonder if anything constructive is going to come out of all this.
Yeah, well, I don't blame them. I mean, they are being ripped back and forth, and there are opposing theories at work trying to use their testimony, and certainly their testimony has been warped to a certain extent by others. I tried to ignore part of what they were saying for the simple reason that it wasn't important to the main thing that I was trying to prove, which has to do with forgery. And so
I think Helen Keller could see that the pictures don't coincide with what the eyewitnesses say they saw, and you don't have to be a medical expert to judge the nature of a wound and where it is, and
who
so
was the
forth
person?
and so on.
Tom Keller?
I'm sorry?
Who was the person you just named?
No, I said Helen Keller.
Oh, Helen.
The blind girl.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's it's very simple. The thing has been fudged, and the problem. I don't think the problem is that nitpicking this or that. I think everybody's getting into semantics. The biggest problem is legitimizing these guys, stories to allow them to be put up against Hume's, Boswell, and Fink.
So, well, actually,
pure and simple.
Actually, you're going to find this kind of crazy, but Boswell and we've been working with Boswell and indirectly with Hume's for some time, and I've talked to Boswell quite a lot. I think you can study that chapter in the book. You'll see the extent of it. They were messaging us in the JAMA articles, yes, this stuff is forged, because they've been following a consistent pattern since 1977 with regard to those pictures, and they can't come out and say it as such, but what they do say is, well, this wound isn't where we put it in the autopsy report. See, this wound is not in the right place, and well, I can tell you that his face was not damaged, and it was normal and intact. That's their language in the JAMA articles. See, and so what they basically did, and as I've already got this in my new book, they have basically proved the case that the men had the courage to come out and say, well, listen, I took this picture and it's phony. See, and I took this x-ray and it's phony. This isn't what we saw. So, as you know, I mean, Lifton was trying to say, well, the body was, there was plaster here and this was a bullet hole, they shot in it here, and they altered the body to fool the camera. See, and you know, and I know, and any sensible person, but we had 12 years or 10 years to struggle against that hoax, and it was very, very hard until I could find his men. The men that you filmed.
No, I don't think that the wounds were altered for the camera, but I think you're both right. I think the body was altered to the degree that they removed the brain, took out whatever was there, or even in the throat that would have...
No.
I think that most of the evidence was removed, except for the fragments in the throat that were never pursued by Ebersol.
See, at the autopsy, there was no metal in the throat. And the autopsy, in the report, they state what metal was in the body. And
so what you're saying is that Jerrol Custer is incorrect in stating that the initial X-rays he took that he showed Ebersol showing metal fragments in the throat is not true.
When did he say that?
He said that to my camera.
Metal fragments in the throat?
Yes.
I've never heard that before. I'm surprised that he would say something like that.
I think he said that before. I don't think that was a revelation. I heard that he has said that elsewhere, but...
I think he might have been referring to X-rays, but it's certainly not what was reported at the time. But, I'll double-check that. And as for the throat wound, the tracheotomy wound, there isn't any question. That thing is not altered. What you're looking at is, as Paul O'Connor should have explained to you, in one of the photographs where you see this big ragged wound there, that's retouched. He drew that himself to show how it's retouched. If you look at the left profile photograph, you can see it's a perfectly clean cut through there. As for the size of it, I have checked with every doctor who saw it at Parkland, and it's precisely right. They would have said, well, this isn't right. See,
you mean to tell me that the Fox photograph, that gash in the throat, is what the doctors at Parkland recollect?
Except for the retouched line, the jagged line there, but the size of it is correct.
How can that be? When Perry moved the tube, it was pretty much the same way as when they first put the tube in, which would have been 3 to 5 millimeters.
No, he's looked at these pictures. We had a Baltimore Sun reporter in with him See, he looked at the pictures.
Did it ever
and they're
occur
not
to you
altered.
at this point that these people just want to step aside and get out of the firing line and do
Perry?
not want to stir up the shit again?
You mean Perry? And
Or any of these people, you know, for that matter. I mean,
well, no, they.
Just after the Nova special to see what exactly they saw
I've been back
in,
to all of them.
In the archives.
Well, you really need to take a look at my second book there, because I discuss all those issues. I asked them if the photographs that I'm publishing here are what they saw in Nova, and yes, it is. And you can call Dr. McClellan. They're the
So
same
they saw
photographs.
50-odd pictures that were all the same.
Yeah, but these photographs are not the ones that existed in 1963. Those pictures were burned. A lot of these were changed.
What seems curious that the Fox set seemed to correspond to the early Warren Commission testimony of the wound in the back of the neck, so to speak, lower part of the head. Then all of a sudden,
there's no wound in the back of the neck. It's on the shoulder.
Whatever that whatever you call that part of flesh right below the hairline there.
Right.
Whatever the hell that is,
hairline.
that's where they originally said the entrance wound was in '64, wasn't it?
Well, yes, but the doctors, if you study their testimony in Volume 7, the autopsy doctors of the House Committee book, they're pointing to that piece of flesh there. It's in the hair near the hairline.
Right.
They're saying that is where the entry into the head was.
Right, so that's basically where they placed. And then by the clock panel, they realized that couldn't be, and they moved it up. And then the Grodin color pictures seem to correspond to that new scenario.
Well,
do they not?
Yes.
You know, pictures keep appearing when somebody has a new agenda to put forth.
And that I discussed in my second book. That's why I just got sued, and I can read you how he put it. He said that by my saying that his pictures keep changing, see, because we have seen different pictures in his possession. We saw pictures with a big hole in the side of the head on the right side, and then pictures without it. Steve Barber saw the brain spilling out of the hole. I saw it empty without any brain. There's no photograph now that has such a hole. One of the back of the head pictures that he had little sickles all the way around what he calls the mat line. See, there's many problems with the pictures, and then you have to ask, well, how did that acoustical tape happen to end up at the House of Representatives, and what staffer had to find a motorcycle somewhere in the photographic evidence that could have recorded this tape? The fact is, there are no shots on the tape. I've been working with a team of people now to try to decode this whole problem, but what you have here is a lot of planted evidence in the case, and it tracks back to certain specific people who've been putting forward this evidence. And I was everybody's sucker when I got into this, and as I'm sure you're having the same experience too, and everybody I know, when they first get into this, they get run over by a truck right away. So it's very hard to sort through who you're dealing with and what's going on. I think my reporting is about as accurate as it can get, and yet I never know when I'm being lied to, and so I have to go to every possible witness. Now, let's go back to the throat wound for a second. I have been to every witness at Parkland who saw that, and they say that the size of it, see, and the width of it is correct. The only change, and Paul O'Connor drew this, if you look in High Treason 2, there's a drawing that he made. He shows how it was retouched to make it look like a jagged exit wound. And when the House first published a tracing of this, they exaggerated it, and people said, oh, that's the exit wound, see? And they thought the whole gash was an exit wound. They forgot about it being a trach wound. But again, look at the left profile photograph that shows the neck and that incision, and it's not jagged. It's a nice, clean, neat cut. So the issues are, is it the same length?
But you're seeing it on profile. You can't get a real determination on the width or the length of.
Well, you don't get the length of it, horizontal length, but you see how gaping it is.
What it seems to me is that when that tube was removed, it was pretty much the way that when it was inserted over whatever that little puncture wound was. Then somehow or other, when
Rick, you're operating at somewhat of a disadvantage, because if you look in my section on the throat wound, there was an operation there. He had to know what happened to that bullet. He looked all the way down into the chest through that hole in the neck.
Who did?
Perry. And they had they were 5 minutes getting that tube in there because they had to know what damage was done to the trach tube and where was the bullet. See, now the suspicion is maybe somebody got the bullet out right then. See, but you can't just stick a trach tube in there until you know if the trach has been torn apart by a bullet. See, so there was an exploratory operation. They had to have plenty of room.
That's the first I've heard of that.
Well, that's because nobody ever investigated at the time. Nobody could know what all the questions would be in 1963 and 64, so all these questions weren't asked. So I find myself having to go back every couple of years with a new set of questions because of the new issues that rise. See, and the one thing I'm sure of is that the wounds did not change between Parkland and Bethesda, and these men, the same men that you filmed, they drew on a mannequin head the same drawings, and I also had them on other television shows.
I think the wounds didn't change to the degree where we see them in the photograph. I think the wounds were enlarged to a degree, and whoever was trying to get evidence out of the body, that I think that's pretty obvious.
Did you have Jim Jenkins there?
Yes.
Okay, well, he described you infusing the brain, right?
Right.
And he had most of a whole brain, right?
Well, he didn't know how much he had.
Well,
nobody weighed it that night.
No, but he's been very specific on how much of it was shot away. See, and our fellow, was not in his hands when he did all this, and he had most of the brain there. And there are numerous other witnesses that have testified to this. Paul O'Connor is, unfortunately, and I hate to say this because he was so important. In certain ways, he's more important than the other witnesses because of his medical understanding. But he's become a professional witness, and in that sense, there's lots of people down in Dealey Plaza, like Jean Hill and Beverly Oliver, who a lot of people say weren't even there, that she wasn't even there. There's a lot of people that, and even Dallas doctors would say, well, this, and this, when they're only repeating what they heard in the lunchroom after the president died. See, as though they saw it. It was that real to them. If they heard it from Perry or somebody, then it becomes their testimony, and you have to sort through to find out, well, did they actually see this? Well, Paul O'Connor was most likely not in the room for quite a few periods of time. He does describe being sent out for a number of errands. And about the brain thing, he's made so many inconsistent statements about it that the only possible conclusion to try to save him some credibility is that he simply wasn't there. I mean, Jim Jenkins is related to him by marriage. They're very close, and Jim Jenkins is not lying. We know this absolutely beyond any doubt. He's simply not lying.
Yeah, but Jim Jenkins will also tell you that, in his opinion, the brain stem was severed and the brain was removed and put back in before the body arrived at Bethesda.
No, he just says it looked like a neat cut. I recorded all this in my book, okay?
Well, that's not what he told me.
Look in the chapter on Jim Jenkins. And if you run with something like that, you will be in a position of libel, because in my book I describe at great length.
Who's being libeled?
I will be libeled.
For what? Putting down information that somebody says 2 years ago and then they change the story?
No, in my book he says that it was neatly severed. See, I didn't hide anything in this book. I printed what they told me.
Right.
But the question is,
So we all agree it was neatly severed, but then what? Take us to the next step. How can a bullet so neatly sever the brainstem?
Okay, but that doesn't give you the right to then make presumptions.
I'm not making presumptions. I'm just telling you what he told me.
I know. But then he also says that they had to make some cuts in order to get the brain out. So
in your book, you said it was a simple matter of Humes using, or Boswell, one of the two, just using sutures, and the thing plopped right out.
Well, not sutures, but they had to cut the skull.
Something.
You can see the saw marks in the photographs. They had to make some cuts in order to get it out. So if it had already been out, how the fuck did it get back in?
Well, you'll have to ask Jim Jenkins then.
Yeah. Well, all that's dealt with in
but I mean, that's still nitpicking. The bottom line is the exit wound's either in one place or another. It's very simple. The American public gets lost when you get into all
more
this
than one exit
medical mumbo-jumbo,
Yeah, well, don't jump to a lot of conclusions from it. You're going to have to take quite a lot of time to sift through all the data that you have before you jump on it. Cause
well, the thing is, I think a lot of people have gotten to the point where they can't see the trees from the forest because they've been so buried in all this stuff.
That's absolutely true.
And, I'm just coming in from the outside with an open mind and a different perspective, and I'm just seeing a lot of things.
I don't think you've briefed yourself enough on all the issues because, I think that I did present the definitive investigation of what these people hold in their heads. Almost every single medical witness, that I've been able to get extended interviews with, and you can't say that yourself.
Well,
I've been able.
I'm just looking at the very simple stuff. Was the nature of the wound of the head the same in Bethesda when the body was received as it left in Parkland? And that seems to be the case for all intents and purposes.
All right.
So that's all one needs to know, and therefore the pictures are not.
Also, at all times, bear in mind that these were 18 years old. Some of them enlisted men, uneducated, and so you have to.
I think when you see somebody's wound like that and you're working with it, it wasn't a quick flash. Jerrol Custer was taking numerous X-rays. Riebe was taking numerous pictures. Jenkins was with the body the whole evening, as was O'Connor when he closed the coffin. So, it's not like these guys saw it for all of 10 seconds and then they're trying hard to recollect it. I think it's pretty. You probably, or I probably would have remembered that forever, too. That's a pretty vivid sight, wouldn't you think?
Oh, well, I think so, yeah. I think
so
passed out.
I don't know the medical repercussions of any of this or any of the intricacies, but I do know that from what these guys told me, anyway, is that the nature of the wound to the back of the head was pretty much corresponding to what Parkland was saying, and therefore whatever we see, because they are bootlegged, right? Nobody at the archives have issued them officially. Oh, we know there may be something else.
Well, from the House Volume 7, you can verify that some of the photographs are identical. In other words, they were traced into Volume 7, published by the House of Representatives. So there's a certain amount of the photographs that can be.
Well, assuming that they're the government's position and that they are what they showed all these other people during these investigations, then the whole thing is being fair.
Right. Well, one of the secrets is that Grodin got out a set, the color pictures.
Right.
And the Fox set, presuming that the story that I have correctly from Mark is true, then they corroborate pretty much Grodin's set. There are some differences that indicate some changes were made, some retouching or this or that. And I detailed that at
Well, the
great
Fox
length.
set doesn't show that bullet entry wound in the top of the head that you see in the color shots, do?
In some pictures it's there, in some pictures it's not there. See, it's drawn in. It just isn't in all the pictures. The color, one of Grodin's color pictures has no entry hole in the colic at all. See, and it's quite clear that there's nothing there. And in fact, Dr. Humes comments on it in Volume 7 when he's with the panel of doctors. Both he and Boswell point to it. And he says, "I defy you to see." No, I think he's talking to the black and whites. He says, "I defy you to show me an entry hole in this region." In the I think it's the black and whites, but he calls it color of black and whites. That's all referenced in my book. I can get
So
it.
that you're trying to see come out of all this.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I've been trying to write a more definitive history. I'm not working in the medical evidence right now, but I have in my book. I'm summarizing and distilling it, sifting through it, and I'm presenting quite a there is a section on the medical evidence in the new book. But basically, I tried to get to the bottom of it, as you're trying to do, and come to some valid conclusions. And it isn't easy because there's so many.
Well, you see, you've been working on something that now has defined an agenda for you. You pretty much have a direction that you feel that this thing goes. I'm not coming from any direction at all. The whole point was just to put these guys in front of a camera and let them talk about what they wanted to talk about. Yeah. And I probably did an injustice to that opportunity because I didn't have my homework completely done. There were a lot of questions that probably were important. They should have been asked of all of them while they were there together that weren't asked, and I feel very badly about that.
Did you happen to ask him if anybody had told him to plant false evidence on me or anybody else?
Of course not.
False statements?
First of all, I was trying to take this thing out of the context of all the mudslinging that's going on between all of you, because all that does is, in the mind of the media and others, take the whole thing back 10 steps, in my opinion. And it's a shame that everybody can't unfortunately pull their resources together and put together a united front instead of being so territorial. And unfortunately, that's the nature of the thing in my perception since I've come into this, is that you're all separate islands, all fighting for whatever it is that you feel you believe in, but unfortunately it's taken away from doing what I think you all want to do in the first place, is to prove that the government has been bullshitting us for almost 30 years. But the thing is now, you're almost getting more publicity from your infighting than you are from the serious research that you've done all these years.
Well, all that is true.
So how can the press take Robert Groden or David Lifton?
And believe me, you're going to be included in that all. Everything you just said to me, as though you're not a part of this, believe me, they will. Next thing you know, you're going to be included with the other criminals.
Not until I write a book, anyway. But the other thing I found is the American public, for the most part, doesn't read. So tremendous work is done on all of your parts to get it on the record. The books come and go, and they're off the shelves, and then it's forgotten about. Where, the thing I feel is important is if you can get this thing on film or video and get it out in some way or manner that can be on a video store shelf for years to come, somehow or other
let me ask you something. Keep me in mind if there's, I want to get a comprehensive video project out there, but my new book is, again, delaying everything because I'm working day and night. But, it may be that we can all work together on it. But have you talked to Mark Crouch in the last week?
I might have. I don't recall. I might have.
Because he had the impression that you climbed all over his ass and were just enraged at him and accused him of forgery or something like that.
No, I can't believe he would say that. There's no reason for Mark to have made that comment. Mark and I have not gotten deeply involved in anything, but every conversation we've had has been very cordial, and he's been very helpful. So I find that hard to. I know that everybody is having problems with each other at this point, and I hope you all work it out, but I certainly don't want to be drawn into all that nonsense.
You will be. You will be. Unless you can just completely keep your own console. But it is a nightmare, this whole thing. My new book is going to have in the last book, you'll find a section on the research community. But I'm going to try to write much more this time. It depends on what my publisher will put up with, But they've given me the okay to deal with it up to a point. But it's gross. The whole picture of of these people. I was at a party last night with Gus Russo and John Judge and John Newman and a number of other people, researchers and so on, and we were discussing some of these things. And it's just like a full-scale war going on, and it's real bad. But what some, like John Judge, he keeps his sort of dossiers on people like Mark Lane and many of the other famous people in this. And the bottom line of what a lot of these people are about is horrifying, and so then you wonder why they are using this, what they're doing is using this case as a mask for their own activities. And in some cases, it's actually criminal activities because nobody's going to do anything to them as long as they're in the spotlight in this case. And I'm talking about copyright violations and pirating and in other fields, too, in music and all kinds of things that they're doing. And there's a whole lot of people involved in this case that are using it for their own commercial purposes or whatever. And
that's why these people have made it very easy for the press to do what they've done all these years.
Sure.
That's the saddest part of all.
Yeah, and then nobody can sort through. I'm dealing with a big newspaper here at close range, and they're so bamboozled at this point they can't sort through to find what's real and what isn't. They just automatically assume that anything coming out about the case is phony. And as far as I'm concerned, I have Oliver Stone to thank for that, because he brought a mountain of shit out of the woodwork, And at the moment that I'm publishing my most important research in the medical area, which is in my last book, it's completely buried by his movie and all the phony books in the case, Mortal Error and many other things. So it's awful. So I realized I had to try again and write another book, and it's entirely new except for my representation of the medical evidence in a more solid or comprehensive fashion, and hopefully will be harder hitting.
Well, I wouldn't worry so much about what I'm doing with the video because Robert Grodin is coming out with one. I'm sure you know that. So.
Well, I don't know.
He's been running around the country interviewing everybody on videotape. And,
yeah, he's been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, so I guess he's on the verge of putting one out. So
yeah.
He's the one that'll have something out. You know, I doubt I will.
Saw, yeah. But I don't know what. He's not a great. Interviewing people is not his forte. I mean, he's not an investigative journalist. He's not trained, and that's what I'm very worried about because he's got his own presumptions. When I talk to these people, I don't start with a presumption. I'm just trying to find out what they have to say. See, and I'm not trying to fit it into a theory. And when I originally got into all this, I was trying to either prove or disprove forgery.
Hold that thought for just a minute.
Yeah.
Hold on. Well,
listen, anyway, I got to go, but maybe we can talk from time to time. It's not like I'm trying to get anything from you. I just, this is a nightmare. It's almost killed me on a number of occasions. My spirits, emotionally, physically, every other way, especially when I was closely connected to Grodin, and he's still striking heavy blows at me. He's putting out a criminal slander. He's sued me, you know, and there's this kind of fighting among many people in this, and I'm just trying to do my research, and I'm under enormous attack, you know, and then if I try to expose any of it, you know, then I suffer character assassination. So.
Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Give me a call. You still have my phone number?
Yes, I do.
And whatever you do, I hope you have good luck with it. And
well, I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah, the French assassin thing is not dead because I can.
I'm sorry, Harry. Hold on one minute.
Yeah, okay.
It's starting to get hang-up,
Yeah.
so I guess that's a good sign, huh?
Yeah. I was just going to add on that about the French assassin, the information, and I had it in my first book, was that, you know, they did hire stateless persons or people, you know, from other countries and so on. I have a pretty good picture of what did happen in Dallas at this point, and I think at this point it's believable and that I've been able to corroborate it sufficiently. But I'm not so sure that that scenario is right yet. It'll take a while to learn more if I'm lucky enough to learn more. The problem that I have with it is that the people that designed the conspiracy all knew one another. They were all very tightly knit, right down to the gunman, as I understand it. Now I will invest. I'm going to get to the point where I'll hopefully be able to ask more questions about that. But you know, if you hear that I'm dead, you'll know.
The one thing that I seem to find very intriguing is if you're delving into the world of intelligence, and if intelligence was involved to some degree with this operation, and you're talking to people that have some kind of an intelligence background and some knowledge of what happened almost 30 years ago, and they're finally starting to tell you this or that, how can you be sure that you're not just getting more disinformation to just muddy the, you know, I think
you made a jump there. None of them were involved in intelligence. They work for the FBI. It's a network of just plain old agents.
So you're saying that the CIA or military intelligence had nothing to do with this?
No, I didn't say that. You're jumping all over. You know, I'm a little bit too tired now to go on with that. No, they used people from all the agencies that were drawn into this. Some of them were no longer in those agencies. Some of them were still in, but they used people from everywhere in order to force those agencies to cover the murder up. See?
Right.
But it was not.
Oh, hold on a second. You what? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Listen, can we talk?
Give me a call after the holidays.
Sure.
Let's see what's going on.
All right. Good luck.
All right.
Have a nice holiday.
You too.
Bye.
Message 14:05 p.m. December 21.